Trail with Ozzy, the new weekly show where we tackle the taboo and debate the tough questions with the most interesting minds in the game. I'm Carlos Watson, electrifying conversation.
Next time on the Vietnam War, casualties mount as U.S. Marines dig in at Con Tien.
We were being called the Alamo. You know, hey, we knew what the Alamo was.
And the Battle of Dak To takes a staggering toll when the Vietnam War continues.
Tuesday night at 8 on Arizona PBS. When you want to be more informed, Arizona PBS delivers news and analysis with multiple perspectives, thanks to financial support from you and
Hospice of the Valley, medical, social, and spiritual care for patients nearing end of life, and support for their families. A not-for-profit community hospice, HOV.org.
From the Cronkite Studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
Attorney General Jeff Sessions in the hot seat. Senators ask him prying questions about DACA recipients and the pardon of Joe Arpaio.
Plus, she's challenging the incumbent with the backing of President Trump and major conservative leaders. How Kelly Ward is debuting her bid for Senate.
Did you know that Si se puede was a phrase coined here in Arizona? And the story behind that phrase illustrates one woman's activism and legacy.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Madison Connor.
And I'm Tyler Finger. Thank you for joining us. Before he became Attorney General, Jeff Sessions was a senator and a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee. But that history appeared to be little help today when Sessions sat on the other side of the witness table to face questions from his former colleagues. Cronkite News reporter Trevor Fay in our Washington bureau has details on the hearing.
Sessions faced questions from both Republicans and Democrats today about his time managing the Justice Department under the Trump administration. The nearly 5-hour hearing gave lawmakers ample time to press Sessions on a wide range of topics.
Attorney General Jeff Sessions is clear about what the administration wants in a DACA reform bill, and even clearer about what it will not accept.
Does the Department of Justice have a position on whether Congress should legislate a new amnesty program?
I've not taken a position that would support citizenship for those who've entered illegally.
That exchange came during a 5-hour Senate Judiciary Committee hearing in which Sessions was grilled on everything from Russian interference in the election to the opioid crisis to President Trump's pardon of former Maricopa County Sheriff Joe Arpaio.
The president has the power to issue pardons with or without the Department of Justice involved, and that has been done in the past in some very dramatic type pardons. This pardon, I think, was well within the power of the president to do.
Sessions refused to say whether Trump came to him before pardoning Arpaio. He was more willing to talk about DACA, largely repeating administration talking points against any bill that would grant amnesty to dreamers.
Someone who enters the country unlawfully, if they're given some sort of legal status, a normal legal status, should not get everything that would flow to people who properly wait their time and enter lawfully.
Sessions says the president wants DACA reform, but there are strings attached. When asked about tweets from the president that indicated Trump might revisit DACA if Congress does not act by March, Sessions stonewalled.
He would like to have reform in that area, but he wants some other things that are essential to go with it.
Sessions says he will not share what he discussed with Trump privately, but did offer to submit written statements to the senators after the hearing.
This was the first time that Sessions had been before his old committee since his confirmation hearing in January, which could explain the length of the nearly all-day hearing. In Washington, Trevor Fay, Cronkite News.
Controversial conservative leader Steve Bannon helped kick off Kelly Ward's 2018 Senate campaign against Senator Jeff Flake. Reporter Emily Richardson was at the Ward rally in Scottsdale.
No, I'm ready to get to Washington and serve us all. If we want a different outcome from Washington, D.C., we have got to send different people there.
While Kelly Ward used some familiar campaign slogans to launch her Senate bid against incumbent Jeff Flake, some even more familiar faces from the national spotlight were there to rally the crowd.
It's not Donald Trump and Kelly Ward that are trying to shut up. It's you that are trying to shut up.
Donald Trump, with the help of Kelly Ward, will be able to have those legislative victories that are key for advancing the America First agenda.
Both say Arizona can be the flashpoint for political revolution.
And the people of Arizona, the people in this room, if you get out there, if you're the grassroots, and I've talked to it, we're building a grassroots army. It's going to be their money versus your muscle.
It's a simple question. Do you trust the people, or do you trust far-flung bureaucracies?
In the crowd, lifelong Republican Helene Gross said she appreciates Bannon's support.
Oh, Steve was wonderful. He's right on point every time. And it's amazing what he's going to be doing.
At the event, Ward also addressed veteran issues, immigration, tax reform, and health care. But the support of President Trump, as well as Trump's biggest supporters, carried the night.
It's time to melt the snowflake.
In Scottsdale, Emily Richardson, Cronkite News.
Meanwhile, Senator Jeff Flake's new tax reform campaign, which targets special interests taking advantage of the current tax code, took an unusual approach on the Senate floor.
As the alpaca lobby demonstrated, riding herd on tax breaks will cause every special interest benefiting from the code's complexity and unfairness to cry foul. Washington's powerful special interests will mobilize and threaten to derail tax reform. Many would rather protect these loopholes than allow taxpayers to keep more of their own paycheck.
Senator Flake introduced the Tax Expenditure Accountability Act, which asks the Treasury Department to list any group receiving federal tax credits online.
It's been a little over 2 weeks since the shooting in Las Vegas, and the debate on gun control continues to build. Cronkite News reporter Kevin Gessner spoke with people on both sides of the argument.
Arizona ranks 14th in the country in gun-related deaths per year and ranks 40% higher than the national average. It also costs Arizona $1.9 billion every single year to deal with gun violence, from treating injuries to treating gun-related cases and incarcerating criminals.
And what gun violence really is in the United States is that 321 Americans are shot every single day in this country. Approximately 90 die, and the rest are wounded and survive their injuries.
It's these type of statistics that push Jerry Hills from Arizonans for Gun Safety to support universal background checks. But gun law attorney Trent Woods says we have to keep in mind that law-abiding firearm owners have rights too.
There are 30,000 deaths. Most of those, universal background checks, the vast majority wouldn't help. So what are we doing? All we're doing is burdening law-abiding citizens and increasing costs and increasing hassle.
In 2015, almost 1,000 people in Arizona died from firearm-related deaths. This includes about 60 suicides and less than 400 homicides.
And the simple reality is people do kill people. Guns are a tool, and guns can be used to kill people, but they don't do it by themselves.
That's exactly why we want to put laws in place that regulate people.
And Americans may be leaning more toward those regulations. A recent Gallup poll shows 60% of Americans want stricter gun control, the highest level of agreement since 1990.
We want to insist that people are required to go through training. We want to insist that people who don't store their firearms responsibly and little kids get a hold of themselves are held responsible for their irresponsible gun ownership.
The problem lies, and that's where we need to I guess, regulate or control and do a better job.
Since the Las Vegas attack, there have been 16 bills proposed in Congress on both sides of the aisle for some type of gun control. These bills have been introduced to Congress but have not been sent to committee. Kevin Gessner, Cronkite News.
Dolores Huerta, a union leader, mother, political and civil rights activist, is one of the lesser-known figures in recent history. But her impact is felt today by thousands. And now her story is being told on the big screen. Cronkite News had a chance to sit down with Huerta to discuss her life's work.
The documentary Dolores explores the life of Dolores Huerta, who started her career as a grammar teacher in a farming community in California, but then resigned when she realized the poor living conditions of her students' families. She then went on to fight alongside Cesar Chavez for migrant farmer rights.
And coming to a house where there was no linoleum or wood on the floor, just a dirt floor, and the family had orange crates for furniture and cardboard boxes for furniture. And the children looked malnourished, and I decided that that was wrong.
Dolores Huerta co-founded what would become the United Farm Workers and was Cesar Chavez's counterpart for decades. In 1965, UFW organized protests and a boycott against the Coachella Valley grape growers to advocate for better working conditions for those in the fields. After 5 years of fighting, 26 grape growers signed an agreement reducing the use of pesticides and providing unemployment and health care benefits for its workers. She also aided in passing the first law to recognize the rights of farm workers to bargain collectively in 1975. During the prime of her activism career, the phrase "Si se puede," or in English, "Yes we can," was coined right here in Arizona.
When Cesar Chavez was doing a 25-day water-only fast, and some of our professional Latinos that I went to visit said to me, oh, you know, you can't do what you do in California here in Arizona. Arizona is a very different state, so in Arizona, no se puede, you can't do that. And my response to them was, yes, you can, sí se puede in Arizona. And so that's how the phrase was born.
Now in 2017, the impacts of Huerta's work live on. Rafael Reyes, who attended the documentary screening, grew up in a farming community, and his parents were directly affected by Huerta's changes.
For all of their efforts on behalf of my parents and my wife's parents, who were farmers, they had no drinking water, no shade, no health care benefits. So we lived through all that experience, and thanks to her and Cesar Chavez and the union, we can have a better life.
Dolores Huerta has been honored with many awards for her work, including the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2012 from President Obama. For the full multimedia report on Huerta, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org. In the Broadcast Center, Courtney Malley, Cronkite News.
Homeless teens and young adults struggle every day to provide for themselves and loved ones.
And when they decide to further their education, balancing those responsibilities can become almost impossible. But now they are not alone. Coming up, how one group is giving them a chance to focus more on educational success and less on basic survival.
Plus, it's all fun and games until someone gets hurt. How the Arizona State Fair is helping you stay safe while enjoying the rides.
When a story comes in the morning, we're out the door as fast as we can go.
But it's also great to spend more time in communities and produce projects.
From the borderlands to the cities, the reservations, and even the state capitol, we want to get to the heart of the matter.
When the lights come on in the studio, we know our hard work is about to pay off.
We love what we do here at Cronkite News.
We're proud to tell the stories of our state.
Now, more than ever, it's important to have a trusted news source, and that's Cronkite News.
Officially from 36, and he hooks it in! Arizona State wins! Heaving one deep, and it is caught! Jalen Strong! Do you believe it?
I love it! I can't believe it!
I'm Ted Simons, host and managing editor of Arizona Horizon. Join us each weekday at 5:30 and 10 as we bring you the top newsmakers who impact the state. We cover the stories in depth that shape and affect our local communities, and we take the time to ensure that all voices are equally heard. For more than 30 years, Arizona Horizon has been your voice and your source for what matters most, right here on Arizona PBS.
While Arizona ranks 5th worst in the nation for youth homelessness, programs like Youth on Their Own are helping students in Arizona in more ways than one.
Reporter Drew Marine takes us to Tucson, where the home office serves as a safe space for these children who may not always have a place to call home.
Youth on Their Own says they have served more than 1,000 of the almost 6,000 homeless and runaway youths in Pima County in Tucson, and students in the program are grateful.
In my case, it was like my mom passed away when I was 4, and then my dad, it affected him, so he couldn't be in the picture anymore when I was 7.
Kennedy may not have a traditional family life.
So it was just me and my grandma since I was 4. That was like my story.
The 18-year-old was able to break the cycle of poverty with the help from Youth on Their Own, where high school and college students get access to 10 pounds of food a week. Thanks to an on-site mini mall complete with canned food, cereal, clothes, and personal items like toothbrushes and tampons, Serena La Madrid was able to support 3 siblings.
A 5-year-old, a little baby. It was either I was tucking her into sleep or waking her up for school, and that was it. I didn't spend time with her as much.
They really feel like they finally have a person who's in their corner, who actually cares whether or not they go to school or cares whether or not they do well. And that is really kind of a honor.
A nonprofit, Youth on Their Own, has helped many students and has given almost $700,000 in stipends in exchange for good grades and attendance.
125 if I'm correct. And so you would get more money, well, up to that limit if you had like higher grades, like A's and B's and stuff like that. And then it would reduce, you know, if you were just slacking off.
Which allows students like Kennedy to focus less on making ends meet and more on her musical studies.
Asking for help, it's okay. I wish someone would have told me, like, it's okay to ask for help.
For the next steps in her life, Kennedy is expected to graduate from the University of Arizona in 2021. If you or someone you know may benefit from this program's help, there's more information at yoto.org. In the Media Center, Drew Marine, Cronkite News.
These little creatures are creating a big problem.
Coming up on Cronkite News, how Lake Powell is planning to contain the invasion of quagga mussels.
And can we kick these hot temperatures? Coming up next with your 7-day forecast on Cronkite News.
What are you doing? Possibilities. Your day is filled with them.
Reach up, energy in the fingertips, relax. TV, play Downton Abbey.
And PBS helps everyone discover theirs. Anytime, anywhere.
Up in the sky, you can see it.
PBS, we're with you for life.
This fall.
I'm so excited!
What?
From the inspiring to the amazing.
You're in the presence of history.
The compelling.
He said, welcome home. It was just a powerful moment.
To the astounding.
I promised myself I wouldn't cry.
And from the breathtaking.
This is real.
A journey to Mars.
To the electrifying.
We're going to change the world.
All this and more. All this fall.
Oh my God!
Fridays, it's at Cronkite News. Your social sharing connection where you choose the news. Facebook likes and shares, tweets, retweets, and favorites. YouTube views and subscriptions. We're watching you watch us. From our digital home at cronkitenews.azpbs.org to your television, web browser, or mobile device. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Then join us for at Cronkite News, our weekly refresh, each Friday at 5 on Arizona PBS.
We told you about the Fry Fire earlier this year as it was burning near Mount Graham in eastern Arizona. Well, we're now starting to see how animals were affected by the flames. The Arizona Game and Fish Department says the endangered Mount Graham red squirrel saw a decline in their population. Last year, they estimated there were about 250 of them, but this year that number dropped to just 35. Game and Fish says the 50,000-acre fire destroyed huge portions of their habitat.
Lake Powell is infested with invasive mussels that can ruin boats and damage the Glen Canyon recreation area. Officials are taking the 10-year battle against quagga mussels to a new level. Reporter Erica Arrington traveled to Lake Powell to see the impact these mussels are having on the ecosystem there.
Officials who oversee Lake Powell have been fighting for a decade to keep quagga mussels from invading this tourism destination, but they lost the battle.
We were doomed from that November in 2012.
In 2012, the first quagga mussel was discovered here at Lake Powell. Today, the quagga mussels have invaded every canyon of the lake. Now, the war is to keep the mussels from spreading outside of Lake Powell. Some have already been spotted in Lake Mead.
Well, this is a flip-flop. It may not look a whole lot. You can see a strap there, the overall foot shape. This is what those mussels do.
The mussels latch onto the Glen Canyon Dam and can cut off water flow. They strip paint off boats and cause even more damage.
They're in the dam where they can cut off the flow of water. And so for water users, electricity users, it becomes a cost to the taxpayer.
The park officials inspect every boat going in and out of the lake. Boaters who do not comply can receive a fine as high as $5,000.
Please, when you're leaving Lake Powell and or any body of water, remember to clean your boat.
Experts say keeping the quagga mussels in Lake Powell is the only option to contain the threat.
We got to quit moving water. You got to wash and drain your boat every time. Just as simple as that.
At Lake Powell, Erica Arrington, Cronkite News.
If you walked outside, you'll probably know we're still searching for some fall temperatures.
Chelsea Ray Banez is in the Weather Center with our forecast.
We do have some cloud coverage moving across Arizona right now. As it makes its way up north, it's going to give us a chance of some showers here in the valley and thunderstorms up in those higher altitudes tomorrow morning. Temperatures across the state. Grand Canyon right now is 71 degrees, Prescott 77, Yuma 97. In the valley, we are in those mid-90s right now in Phoenix 94. We are going to cool off later tonight. Cave Creek 79, Apache Junction 82, and Coolidge 80 around 8 o'clock tonight. For the rest of the week, we are going to cool off tomorrow. We are going to have a high of 96 degrees, about 10% chance of showers. 90 on Friday with wind speeds around 10 to 15 miles per hour. And Saturday, we're going to get those cooler temperatures, 86 with clear skies. We are going to get a little bit warmer Sunday, 92, Monday, 96, Tuesday, 98, and Wednesday, 95. I'm Chelsea Ray Banez, Cronkite Weather.
The Arizona State Fair is back open today for its final 2 weeks of the season. Reporter Enkirika Omernie spoke to ride experts to see what is being done to ensure the safety of fairgoers.
The Arizona State Fair attracts more than 1 million people annually. People from all over the state come to enjoy different foods, games, and rides.
The rides are fun. We're here to have fun. I don't really worry about anything.
However, while the rides are a big attraction, there can be safety concerns that go along with them.
This one I feel a little bit more safer with versus the ones that go up in the air and spin around and all that. At least this one stays primarily on the ground.
We look for anything that may have happened from the last event to this event. 90% of the things that happen on amusement rides generally happen during transport.
Barry Scheibel has been a ride inspector since 1972. He's a third-party inspector hired by the fair to give a second look at the rides to ensure that everything goes as planned.
I've seen a lot of videos where the rides have malfunctioned, so I'm just kind of nervous for my children to get on a ride like that.
In July, an 18-year-old man was killed and 7 more injured when a ride at the Ohio State Fair malfunctioned. Scheibel says that something like that wouldn't happen here in Arizona.
We don't have the rust and corrosion problems that they have on the East Coast. We don't get that here at all. That ride failed due to ice, snow, salt.
In his time as an inspector, Scheibel says no one has been seriously injured on a ride that he has looked at, as long as they ride properly.
Arizona State Fair officials say that most often when people are hurt on rides, it has little to do with the ride itself, but rather the rider not following directions. So that could mean being too short for the ride, raising up from the seat when in motion, or not keeping their hands and feet inside as they should.
With good maintenance, Scheibel says rides can last up to 100 years. In Phoenix, Enkirika Omernie, Cronkite News.
Scheibel says that most rides take about 2 to 3 hours to look at. They're helping the homeless using plastic bags.
Coming up on Cronkite News, we take a look at one group that is connecting youth to homeless veterans through creative projects.
Show where we tackle the taboo and debate the tough questions with some of the most interesting minds in the game. I'm Carlos Watson, electrifying conversation, Friday, only on PBS.
children of planet Earth.
Exploring, it's the lifeblood of the mission.
Human beings are a curious bunch.
What are we going to see when we get really close?
Just because an idea is crazy, it's not necessarily wrong.
We were on our way.
You don't get anywhere until you've tested the limits.
That carries an intensity you can't imagine.
You could hear people just, whoa.
Oh my God, absolutely spectacular.
It's a rush. We ask a lot of our heroes.
We are at a remarkable moment.
We're going farther than any exploration ever has.
It's sometimes a struggle to connect today's youth with older veterans.
But one Arizonan has found a way through crocheting for a cause. Sydney Eisenberg reports.
According to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, as of January 2016, there were more than 1,000 veterans who were homeless or living in temporary housing in Arizona. In Anthem, 2 groups are using plastic bags to help those homeless veterans feel a little more comfortable. These plastic bags are seeing new life thanks to the Daisy Mountain Veterans and Youth for Troops.
We make plastic sleeping mats for the homeless veterans out of recycled plastic bags from Walmart, the grocery stores. It keeps you warm in the winter months and it keeps you off the cold and the wet in the summer.
Volunteers gathered at the Anthem Civic Building to sort, cut, and loop plastic into long chains that would be crocheted into mats.
It's not very hard once you get used to it.
Austin Friedman was able to pick up crocheting after just a few minutes. He was even able to give me a lesson.
And then you pull the 2 loops over, and you just made another piece of the long chain there is.
Not only do these plastic mats help homeless veterans, they also connect veterans to a younger generation. Derry Berry herself is a Marine veteran from the Vietnam era. She says her favorite part is teaching kids how to help her friends who also served.
One of the young girls I was showing how to crochet, she said, is there a right way or a wrong way? I said, no, this is all made with love. There's no right way or wrong way.
I feel proud because they deserve to get back on their feet again for helping us, so we should help them.
Now these groups plan to distribute 50 mats to different shelters and organizations. In the broadcast center, Sydney Eisenberg, Cronkite News.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight.
For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
They say an elephant never forgets, but can animals really form lasting bonds with us?
This is a totally wild cheetah. Why did she let me do that?
It's time to reunite some remarkable friends to see what happens next.
Tonight at 7 on Arizona PBS. Explore new ideas and new worlds here on Arizona PBS, a community service of Arizona State University.
Are your ducks in a row? Almost half of Americans do not have a proper estate plan. Estate plans are more than matters of money and inheritance. They can guide your future health decisions and provide special instructions for loved ones in your care. Put your mind at ease by getting your ducks in a row today.
Coming up next on Arizona PBS, Life and World.
Arizona PBS congratulates its winners of 4 2017 Emmy Awards. Check Please Arizona led the way with 2 wins as Arizona PBS continued its tradition of producing award-winning local programming and its dedication to excellence for viewers like you.
Coming soon to Arizona PBS.
It's a new season of Globe Trekker. See the world like you've never seen it before.
If you track an anaconda, you got to go deep into the jungle.
In Cantonese food, the best way to remember someone is to name a piece of food after them.
Globe Trekker.
Sunday night at 6 on Arizona PBS.
Next time on the Vietnam War.
A lot of mud, blood, and artillery.
Casualties mount as U.S. Marines dig in at Con Thien.
We were being called the Alamo. You know, hey, we knew what the Alamo was.
And the Battle of Dak To takes a staggering toll.
Nhìn thấy mặt nhau này để rất gần, chúng tôi hô nổ súng.
When the Vietnam War continues.
Tuesday night at 8 on Arizona PBS. When you want to be more amazed, Arizona PBS delivers the thrill of exploration in science and history, thanks to financial support from you and
Hospice of the Valley, a not-for-profit community hospice for patients nearing end of life and support for their families. HOV.org.
Whitfield Nursery, proud to support Arizona PBS, a Valley